Good morning. Is this microphone loud enough? Can you hear me? Artists, can you hear me? Okay. Uh, Big day today, election day. And before we start, I just want to remind everybody, if anybody hasn't voted, you could ride the bus to the polls at 1 o'clock today. Just let the activities office know that you want to go in case you haven't voted. Um, We're going to have the roll call from Kay and her minutes. Nancy Ford, Charles. Well, it's on it. Okay, David Lundquist, Judy Beam, Suzanne Jones, Richard Fluke, Jim Coleman, Martha Reeves, Lester Hazel, Tom Hayes, Jerry James, Molly Williams, Kim Cummings, Sandy Nutter, I'm sorry, Sandy Nutter, nope, Ed Ross, Moira Ebling, Marty King, Bob Tower, Janice Grand, Barb Trushalis, Larry Moon, Marilyn Bama, Evelyn Garner, David Scarrow, Kathy Walls, Cheryl Wasserman, Andrew Price, Stan Rakowski, Ann Grandstaff, Jan Henderson, Louise Gustry, Catherine Runia, Diana Haskins, no, Rena Brooks, Julia Hartenberger, Marilyn Smith, Artis Curl, Gail Pearson, Mary Lou Sanderson, Andrea Heighton, Mabel Stenish, Rick Deemer, Katie Takahashi, okay. Diane Rabbers, and Nancy Shalari. Okay, I think that's it. We do have a quorum. Well, let me say first of all that assistant reps are still needed on floors 2 and 3, hall 4. And apparently we haven't been able to get anyone who lives on those halls. However, we wish someone would speak up and say, I'll be assistant rep for those floors. That's floor 2 and 3, and it's hall 4 on each of the floors. So help, please. Okay. Now, what did I do with that? I have a list of items that I already know need to be corrected in the minutes, and those will be taken care of, and I will send out the new clean copy for each of you once they're approved. Let me go through the corrections that I know need correcting. First of all, there was a question about the title of this group, and it is Representatives Council without an apostrophe. Residents Council without an apostrophe. I don't know if I can explain that to you, but that's the way it is in our bylaws, and so that's the way it is. It really is a council made up of representatives. Apparently it doesn't belong to the representatives, that's why it doesn't need the apostrophe after. I did have it with no apostrophe. I do have it with no apostrophe, but it was pointed out to me by a couple of people that it seemed to be plural possessive and would need the apostrophe. It does not. But these things needed to be corrected. Paving will begin in I believe that was the main, oh, I know the other one happened to be, combining rooms will be done in Woodside, not in the health center. So that takes care of those. And then I know there are a few typos, and those I hope have all been noted and will be corrected. Do you have any other, especially major corrections to do? Any other corrections to the minutes? Can I approve them with the corrections that I noted? No? The minutes stand approved. As those corrections are noted. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Unless you have something else for me. Suzanne has 2 reports for us this morning. Allie and I have been working together to make this bigger so you can actually read it. Closer, yeah, I know. First of all, let me apologize to all you reps for sending you the wrong report. This is one of those months. You have the corrected report now, and the one you see behind me is the correct report. I know it's November, but I can't give you November's numbers because we're not done with November. So every month's treasurer's report will actually be the report for the previous month's income and expenses. And that confuses me when I'm trying to send out a report to you too. So what you see is the correct report for the November Residents Council meeting, even though it says October on it, because that's when we took in the money and spent the money, okay? We began the month with a balance of $128,960.75. Oh, and that is good, it's pretty big. Our income was $101,379.61. We had expenses of $2,344.81 for a total of $127,995.55. Are there any questions on this report? Okay. The next report I have for you. Oh, good. Again, nice and big. This is something that you haven't seen, but I think it's useful to see, and that is the complete report of income and expenses, not for the month, but for the year. This is for the year 21-22. The fiscal year ended September 30th. Okay, so these are the specific categories of funds and what we received and spent over the course of the fiscal year. Employee Emergency Fund, we took in $9,656.34 and spent $7,574.34. Employee Scholarship. Now bear in mind, this is the entire fiscal year. So some of it came in before we gave out the scholarships. A little of it came in after we gave out the scholarships. This is just straight money in, money out. $38,826.74 was taken in. $35,181.78 was distributed.
I thought they distributed all of it.
The problem is, we didn't have enough applications. And it would be awkward to get down to distributing every penny of it. We're actually coming a lot closer to spending all of the donations. The general fund raised a grand total of $9.06, and we spent $212.75. Where did we get the money? Well, it came in increments of about 60 cents a month of interest, and we got a 99-cent rebate on our order for new checks. Isn't that exciting? So how do we proceed going forward? The general fund is supported by the Greatest Needs Fund, and I have already asked Ken to transfer some money in. We have about $100 in that fund right now, and we'll have expenses. We have to pay to file our taxes, for example. We have to buy checks and paper and envelopes. So that's where that money, that's how that money is spent. And anytime you want to know anything more specific about how the money, where the money comes from, or where the money goes, you can ask me directly and I will be happy to show you the ledger pages for each one of the accounts. The library, once again, this is one of those unusual situations. Donations to the library over the course of the year were $260. The expenses were $3,438.43. The library has a very significant cash balance, and that has been accumulating over the years. Plus, there is the extremely generous amount that sits at the Community Foundation that we haven't actually taken advantage of using that money and put it in residence council funds. But the library is in good fiscal shape. And most of this money has to do with was spent for the computer upgrade. The Village Garden Fund, $2,940 in donations, expenditures of $2,781.20. Village Woods, $13,593.81, expenditures of $11,143.53. Woodshop, $2,057 of income, $3,130.51. And where you see a discrepancy like that, it simply means that the account had money in it at the beginning of the fiscal year. This is not a complete statement of each fund's balance. It's just what was spent, what came in and was spent this year. So this year, the total in these fund accounts, the income was $67,000, $342.95, and the expenses were $63,462.54. Those are the accounts that we now hold as resident council. The next section, these are funds that were transferred out of the residence council treasury and somewhere else. This year, resident council received $94,745. We transferred to Friendship Village $218,594.25. Whoa, how did that happen? That happened with a beginning balance October 1st, 2021 of about $124,000. That was the initial balance. I'm sorry, it's early to be confusing you all with this. At any rate, because of the way the checks are issued, it made way more sense to have the money collected for EAF and distributed to EAF to come from Friendship Village rather than having Friendship Village collect the money, send a check to Residents Council, only to have Residents Council turn around and give the check, write a different check to Friendship Village. And that's why Ken always gives us an update on this each month, and I no longer do. Residents Council still controls the money for EAF. It is distributed as Residents Council Committee decides, and it can only be used for EAF. Questions? Okay, and the Needlers, when we changed the bylaws, Needlers was not, and actually never has been, a standing committee, which means it is not a fund holding committee. So when the bylaws changed, that changed, and the funds that belong to Needlers went to Life Enrichment because it's an activity and it will be distributed as an activity. This is going to be in the Villager, this report, next month, so you can all look at it. In the meantime, are there any questions that come to mind right away? Yes?
I see on television that the scholars, what is it, 17,000 get free tuition? Excuse me, would you give her the microphone? I see on television 17,000 get free tuition here. That scholarship goes to the schools, doesn't it?
It's on.
Well, yes, it goes directly to the schools
But if
on
they get
behalf.
free tuition, the school, they won't send any money to the schools.
I guess I don't understand the question. When we have an employee scholar, the money that we allocate this year, it was $25,000. No, wouldn't that be nice? $2,500. It goes directly to the school to be used on behalf of that employee.
Yeah, but if this, our governor is always advertising over TV where 17,000 can go to college free.
Yeah, but free maybe means tuition. It doesn't include books.
No,
It doesn't include
that's tuition.
room and board, whatever. The money that goes to the colleges from our scholarship can be used by the student for any educational expense, any expense associated with the college. I mean, they can't pay gas to get to school with it because the school holds it. But if they buy something, if they buy their books in the bookstore, they can apply that money. Yeah.
What's the difference between, how does the employee emergency fund dovetail with emergencies that have to do with employees that the administration takes care of? I mean,
Yes, please, Beth.
pardon? Oh,
So if I'm understanding the question is, how does this emergency fund relate to the administration's assistance with employees?
right.
Right. It's the same thing. This is the fund that the administration uses to assist employees when they have an emergency. So the process goes, and the reason, so let me, the resident council holds the money, right, in order to keep it at arm's length from the corporation. But a staff person endures an emergency, they fill out an application, there's a review committee that determines the amount of the award, and then they will distribute the award from this account to assist the staff person. Again, similar to the scholarship committee, this money will then go to a vendor, usually it's paying, rent, or it's paying a repair bill, or it's repairing, or it's paying for, whatever that emergency is. The money rarely goes to the staff person, him or herself, and it goes to whatever it is that it needs to go to. But that's the fund that they use. I don't know, does that answer your question?
It does, except I thought it was strange that something that is part and parcel of administration comes under residence council.
Yeah, it's, I'm not, so this was set up so many years ago, and my understanding is that it's really just being done to keep it at kind of like what they call an arm's length distance away, and it just creates a level of checks and balances. And, the treasurer will argue that she doesn't need the money at all. It's an odd situation in some level, but it's a little bit of our tradition, and it's working. And frankly, if the corporation, and by corporation I mean like Friendship Village, right? So if the corporation were to hold the money, it would have to hold the money in a separate bank account. Like, this money cannot be intermingled with our corporate assets. So instead of, maybe once upon a long time ago, instead of just creating a separate bank account that accounting would be looking over, there was a decision and a conversation where, well, we'll just let the resident council hold it, and that'll be the separate bank account that it has to stay in. Yes?
I believe that the employee then pays this back through wage deductions when the emergency ends, and they can afford to do that. Is that correct?
So sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes these are just outright grants, and then sometimes they're loans. And that is determined by the committee, which I am not a part of. It is determined by that committee as to whether it's going to be a loan or a grant. And, the circumstances can vary. A lot of times the staff person, if their car breaks down and they need the car to get to work, right? And so all of a sudden they got a $600 whatever to fix their car, that's an emergency to them, and we want them to have a car because we want them to get to work. So in those instances, a lot of times that's a loan, right? We're just fronting them the money at no interest, and here it is, pay your bill, and then we'll do a payroll deduct over a period of time that's comfortable for you, and you'll pay us back. But the immediate need, that immediate crisis is met. Other times, and I think this has happened where a family member endures a death, or a staff endures a death in their family, and all of a sudden they're hit with a $4,000 funeral fee, right? And I think a lot of times in those instances, those are just grants, right? That's just that's an extraordinary emergency, and that might just be here, pay for the cremation or the burial of your loved one. So it depends upon the circumstances.
I think the fact that Friendship Village staff is dealing with the employee contains the relationship there for confidentiality. If we, as a residence council, treasurer, perhaps the board, were to deal, we would be dealing with an employee. We would know that employee's name.
Right.
There would be no confidentiality. That could end up every resident here knowing that Jim Jones got the $600 to fix his car. So I think it's important that the decision-making is between the staff and the employee.
Right. What Dick is alluding to is, in this process, the resident council, though it holds the money, is not privy to where that money or who that money is assisting. You know, it could be a check request to such and such a place, but it doesn't always know who that staff person is. And to your point, you know, it's a confidentiality issue. You know, so we try to hold that part of that decision pretty close to vest between that staff person and really that committee. Outside of that committee, nobody really knows. I certainly don't know. I mean, I know that the executive director sits on that committee. I think the accounting director sits on that committee. There's other people on that committee that I don't really know who they are. Probably human resources, yep. Human resources. Yeah. So it's you know, it's held pretty tightly, and it's for confidentiality purposes, yep.
You're assuming, however, that a resident would not be as capable of keeping a secret as the administration, and I think the concern that I'm feeling is we not only hold the money, we provide the money, but we have no input as to how it will be used. Am I picking up on that from some of you? But as Ken says, it's been working for a long time, and I don't know that if we ask who would like to volunteer to be on the committee, that anybody would probably raise their hand. So unless there's a big groundswell to make a change on this, I think it's one of those things that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I hear where you're coming from, I think, and I've had the kind of same feeling myself about it, that if we're providing the money, it seems like we should have something to say about it. But I've been convinced that the system's working. Do you have anything else now?
Yeah, I want to give a report on the appreciation fund, but.
Okay.
Are you done?
Unless there were other questions.
Are there other questions for our treasurer?
Okay, then the treasurer's reports are filed for audit.
Yes. So but a little bit to Nancy's question on how the emergency fund is funded. There are a handful of residents, and by a handful I mean less than 5, who might contribute to that fund. Most of the money, 99.5% of the money, has come from the sale of refurbished rooms. So when we refurbish an apartment and we take the appliances out of that apartment and we take the cabinets out of that apartment, we tend not to trash things, and we tend to resell those things back into the used commodity market around here. There are people who are interested in our cabinets. There are people interested in our stoves and our refrigerators, and we'll retail those out at $50 or $100 or $200 or whatever we can manage to get for those things. That money is earmarked for the emergency fund. So most of that 20 whatever, you know, right now we had $10,000 of income this year. I would say, you know, most of that, not all of it, because there's a few residents who contribute to the emergency fund, but most of that money is coming from the sale of basically things out of our refurbished apartments, which, you know, I think is a, you know, pretty good thing to do, right? We're not trashing stuff, and we're turning that into cash that then has, you know, some life after it. So like on the original report, you know, the balance of that emergency fund is sitting at over $24,000. So it's a fund that's doing pretty well, you know, provided how it's funded. Any other questions on that? Cool. So the Employee Appreciation Fund, just to let you know, as you know, we fundraise through Thanksgiving, so we're into the final 2 weeks. We are sitting at $116,768, $116,768. That compares to last year at 114,598, so we're a smidge above last year, year to date. And there's still 2 weeks to go. So I met with the Appreciation Committee yesterday. We're going to be putting out a new appeal. So everybody in their inbox and their mailbox will get one more crack at contributing to the Employee Appreciation Fund before we kind of close it off for this fiscal year. Whatever is collected, this is one of those funds now that whatever's collected, it will get evenly distributed out, and the balance would basically be zeroed out come December. And I think it's December 8th, if I recall right. Usually that second Thursday in the month is when the appreciation checks will be distributed to staff. As we move through that moment in time, that's when I'll report back out, either myself or through the committee, of just how much was raised and how much each of the checks was worth to the staff. So all that information will be coming to you in a month as we kind of move through that. Yeah, Darlene.
And I was reviewing some of the newsletters a few years ago, and in there was an article about a gathering after the funds were received for the residents and the employees. I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah, so what Darlene's talking about is once upon a pre-COVID time, we would hold a big old soiree, and for those of you who've been around longer than 4 years now, or 5 years, you might recall this. On the second Thursday of the month, we would get together and it'd be a big old party. We call it the Holiday Mixer. Staff would come back in just for a party. We would cater in all kinds of, usually more like sweets and desserts and things like that. And staff and residents would celebrate together. And then we would all convene in the Kiva, where we would smush together about 280 people. And the checks would be presented. The actual checks would be passed out to the director team, and then the director team would accept the gifts, acknowledge the gifts, and then hand them back out to staff that evening. We stopped doing that when COVID hit because we couldn't smush together 250 people, and we're not doing it this year for essentially the same reason. We're still a little hesitant to smush 250 people into this space. Now, maybe next year, 2023, we might feel a little more comfortable to do that. It is a nice celebration, but we're not doing it. So this year, it'll be, the checks will kind of be distributed kind of behind the scenes, unfortunately. We do a video. We do a separate check issue. Yeah, there's still a separate check issue for appreciation. It just goes through payroll. So yes, that's what we used to do, and it was fun. It was fun. Yeah, it was a good time.
Kim, last year it appears we gave out $218,000. Are we going to be able to give out that much this year? And we seem pretty far away from it.
Yeah, well, we didn't give out 218,000. That's a transfer. And we at one point.
It says it's an expense.
But it was
No,
an
the funds transfers are just separate.
Yeah,
Those aren't expenses. Those are just money that was transferred out of resident council funds.
yeah.
So this is different from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go back a file. So what we gave out last year was about $136,000. By the end of November or that first week of December, we ended up distributing about $136,000. The benefit that we had, and frankly, I don't, where we'll end up being, is that about 3 years ago, we got a $200,000 gift to the Employee Appreciation Fund. And that gift was distributed over multiple years, kind of partially parceled out over a series of years. And that's why it has such a big number up to right now. That was the balance of that big gift that was still being used. We're still using some of that big gift even this year, about $28,000 worth. But it's less than it was last year. So for us to get to $136,000 will take a little bit. So I don't want folks to feel like they've, disappointed or underperformed or anything like that as we've worked off this big gift. But last year we did end up distributing close to I think it was $136,000. And we'll see if we see if the next 2 weeks kind of brings in a big cash flow. It could. You all never stop to surprise me. Staff obviously appreciates this. Your generosity, really kind of shines for them a couple of weeks before the holidays. But really, even at $116,000, we are really doing well compared to other communities our size and in our tradition. So, we're doing good. Yes, ma'am.
As long as you're there, do you want to continue your administration report, which was going to come later, but as long as you're there?
About how much did the top salary be for an individual when it was given out? I don't mean
What was the
gift.
top check?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the top check last year was $650-ish. I think it was right around $660. Yeah, I think so. So, all right. Any other questions on appreciation? Anything else on money? All right. So now I'm here representing the administration. I am not Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine is in California as we speak. He is finishing up one last task related to his previous employment with LCS, and then he will be back here on Thursday and will commence to being our Tim Kaine rather than somebody else's Tim Kaine. I don't really have an update for you. Betsy used to leave me a report to give. I don't know why she didn't. She didn't. Tim Kaine did leave me a report to give. He probably doesn't even know he has to leave a report for me to give. So I think things are going fairly well here, but stay tuned. He will update you more when he can. Any questions? Is there anything you want me to take back up to Tim when he's back in? Is there something else I can answer for you?
Thank you for finishing the ring road.
Oh yeah, paving. I think paving went fairly well, right? I mean, it was inconvenient, but all in all, I think that process actually worked out pretty darn well. And no more speed bumps, and frankly, it looks beautiful, right? It does. It does. So that's a credit to Brandon and his team for managing that. So if you see them, say something to them, because that was a thing, making that all happen.
Now for the woods.
And now for the woods, right, because the woods didn't get repaved, did they? And they were originally going to get repaved, but they did not, I know. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about a notice that was on our statements. It said that beginning in January, payments would be taken on the 15th of, of the month. I'm not sure if it said beginning in January or for January. So since typically we used to pay in retrospect, but now I believe we pay in advance, can I assume that check is going to be coming out in mid-December, or are we talking about mid-January?
It's a great question, Nancy. I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that one. And if folks are confused, I mean, if you're not clear on what you need, then it's really just a question of reaching out to accounting. I'm afraid I really don't know that at all. Maybe I can get them to put out some more clarification. Back there for a second.
Ken,
Yeah.
I appreciate the repaving. It worked very well. However, now that is done, for the last 4 years, I've been asking Brandon, and I wish he was here, when is he gonna do the edging of the sidewalks? I can't believe that these sidewalks, especially going out of the wood side on the back side to the garages, the grass is overgrowing the sidewalks. And I have sent messages to Brandon more than once with no response.
Okay.
If he doesn't want a response, then why does he have an email?
Ouch. Yeah, I get it. I'll follow up with Brandon on that. I don't know the answer to that one, either. It's a reasonable request. You're talking about the stuff right around the building, right? Not the stuff out by the garden homes, right? Okay, I'll see if I can find something for you on that one. Yes, ma'am.
Back to the check issue. When I arrived here, I was told that our rent is deducted on the 25th of the month. So maybe they're just moving it up to the 15th.
Yeah, I think that's all they're doing is moving it up to the 15th. I don't, yeah. And it's for the prior month still, yeah, yeah. One quick note, we have migrated to a new communication system called VoiceFriend, right? So some of you are getting away from one call, right? Now we have something called VoiceFriend. It's similar but better. So you are now in a system whereby you are going to receive, if we have the information, you may receive a phone call, an email, and a text, all on the same announcement, all right? Right, but here's the good thing. You can choose which one of those three you want to get. So if you only want to get a text, you can let Allie know, or Life Enrichment know, and even I think Laura at the front desk, but let Allie know, and you can eliminate the phone call and just get a text. Or you can eliminate the text and the emails and just get a phone call. So what we're trying to do is create some options. What you cannot do is opt out entirely. All right, so you have to get one of the three. Because if you do opt out entirely, and we've had a few people opt out of one call entirely, the challenge is that sometimes you are missing something that you want to get. And we have, and no one's going to come knock on your door if you've opted out of our communications processes. So, choose one of the three or choose all three. It's pretty, whatever one is most convenient for you or the best for you. And in fact, a phone call may come to both your landline and your cell phone if you tell us, if we have that information. So you may get 2 phone calls.
Ken, when
Right here first.
When you say you get a text, do you mean a physical piece of paper in your door?
No, a text is something that comes over your smartphone or your phone, Bob.
Even a landline?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So I still won't get it.
So you don't have a cell phone, do you?
No.
Yeah. So you would get a landline phone call, or do you have email?
Yes.
Yeah, you would get an email.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. Since we're in a digital age today, is there a way that we can make those choices online without having to make a phone call and bother administration 500 times?
So the answer to that is probably not yet. So the question was, can you all select how you're going to get those messages versus letting us know how you're going to get those messages? And I think that once the merge completely happens with Care Merge, so VoiceFriend is a part of Care Merge. They're just integrating. And once VoiceFriend, I think, gets more fully integrated with Care Merge, you'll be able to go into your Care Merge profile and do it yourself. For a lot of people, navigating to your personal preferences in Care Merge, it's just easier to pick up the phone and call Allie. But you're gonna have that ability, I believe, to be able to do that. Is that right?
I'll just add to that. I have my Care Merge class. I'll come to the front of the room so that's I have my Care Merge class every other Tuesday where I will show you how to edit those preferences. Right now, yeah, you do need to tell me just because it's not fully integrated. But eventually, yes, there will be a way, and I have my care merge class. You can call me and I can show you anytime.
We are migrating more and more and more to care merge communications. We are getting away from printed communications. Not that we're going to eliminate printed communications, but you know, there will be more and more digital communications for you all, or phone communications. Da, 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 da. Anything else? Madam President?
Jim? Do you have a brief report for us? No, I said, do you have a brief report for us?
Very brief. The meeting we had a week ago, this past Friday, was relatively short, but quite a bit of ground was covered. Can everybody hear me?
Would you speak a little more slowly?
I must do it wrong. The board thanked Betsy for her years of service and the things that she accomplished while she was here, particularly citing the completion of the Garden Home project, the building of the Aquatic Center, and the building of the clubhouse. The Finance Committee met and had some very good news. The employee retention credit, which Betsy's talked about on numerous occasions, came through, and we booked approximately $4.5 million in the month of September, which is really good news. So it made a good financial month for us. The Ethics Committee met and updated procedures and policies. And the Fund and Development Committee met and said that contributions year to date to funds associated with Friendship Village Kalamazoo were running slightly behind the past couple years. Betsy talked about occupancy rates. They're continuing to creep up. Independent living, as of a week ago last Friday, was 95% occupied and 99% sold. Now that may have changed in the last week, but that's what it was then. Assisted living was 89% occupied, 91% sold. The health center was 65% occupied, and the rehab center had 12 occupants in it as of that date. That was basically the meeting. Any questions?
Thank you. Jerry, do you have anything to add about I had asked Jerry to talk to you about the Employee Appreciation Fund, but do you have anything to add since Ken has spoken about it?
No,
Ken did a very good job. However, he did not press you on the fact that we could still use more money. So you're going to get a little note in your box that says that the employee fund can still use some help. So we would appreciate a little more money. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lestra had started a practice of asking a committee chair to speak to us at each meeting, and I thought that that was really a good idea, and I would like to continue that. Next month, we're going to hear from the Library Committee. And we've been hearing mostly from the standing committees, but we also have subcommittees, groups that just work together. And today, we're going to hear from Barbara Jones about one of those groups that is not a standing committee, but is quite active.
Well, I was asked, can you hear me? I was asked to talk about the committee Wake Up World. The Wake Up World Committee is approximately 22 years old. It was started by women who thought it was important to present programs on social justice issues. I have been on this committee for 14 years. We are a working committee, meeting every week to talk and work on projects and to bring programs to you. We see explosions of hate and threats to people who think in different ways. How do we embrace free speech and civil discourse? Well, our next program may give us a clue. It is called We Talk. It will be presented by Jeffrey Brennan from Western Michigan University. The program is sponsored by the John Fetzer Foundation. So come and hear how students at Western Michigan University are learning how to approach different topics without anger and destructive behavior. Our programs are always listed in the Villager and Cambridge, and our next We Talk program will be December 20th. So watch in the Villager for the name Wake Up World, and come along and learn with us. Hope to see you there. Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, that's applause. Bob Tower is chair of the Resident Representatives Committee, and I think he has a handout for you and would maybe like to say something.
With the new bylaws, we now have the election of hall reps, which is not, we have not had before. So this has been a busy time as of October 1st with my particular committee. There's been a lot of questions about what the residents do, what the assistant residents do. So I'm handing out the duties of the residents and the assistant residents so that you can all see what you do if you are in that position. Okay?
Thank you. I want to apologize for not making it clearer at the party the other day as to what we were giving Betsy and Tim. I understand that some of you who were in the back of the room that day really did not know what we were doing. And because Betsy kind of opened the box and laughed and closed it back up and put it down. But so what we gave Betsy was a silver picture frame, and it was engraved at the bottom. It said, I've lost it, in deepest appreciation from the residents of Friendship Village, Kalamazoo. That was just a little inscription at the bottom. And then we asked our resident caricaturist, Marty Wasserman, to do a caricature of Betsy to put in the frame. So we would have something in the frame. So Marty and Cheryl both worked on that. And I just wanted you all to know what was in there if you didn't know. And we certainly are appreciative of Marty and Cheryl's work on that. Sorry she's not here today to hear that. The shirt we gave Tim, and I should have pulled him up onto the stage before I gave it so he could hold it up to you, but David Lundquist came up with a great idea for just a little gift to Tim to welcome him from all the residents. And that said, what I said to him was, this is going to answer inevitable questions you're going to get from a lot of your friends and relatives. You won't have to answer, you can just wear the shirt. What the shirt said was, yes, there really is a Kalamazoo. So I just, in case anybody missed all that, I just wanted you to know about that. Now, is there any other business? Anything, any old business, any new business, any more questions? Okay, then the meeting stands adjourned.